Years ago, I set out on a very important journey to begin to study the various models and pathways that people in different generations used to build or to create impact, build influence, and build lasting prosperity. And I discovered many different pathways and strategies that people use in their generation to become very influential, very impactful, and to also build prosperity, including so much money. And I described so many of these, both the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And this is a teaching for another day. Maybe I will get to share this in my community of the things that I discovered. But I want to share in this video about one of the pathways that I discovered that can be very subtle but very profound, that if anybody understands it and begin to apply this pathway or this model in their life, they will become very, very impactful, very influential, and very, very wealthy in their generation. So this is for you. If you have ever wondered, but what pathway can I really begin to follow, begin to pursue, begin to apply? Because you see, one of the beauties about God, the reason that God created principles and created laws, is that if you begin to apply certain principles and certain laws that govern, how we live, you can literally begin to predict your life and your success, right? So this is one of those pathways that I believe, from what I have studied, what I have researched, what I've experimented, what I've also tried in my life, and I have also recommended this particular pathway to a couple of my clients, and they are doing profoundly well when it comes to being people of impact, influence, and of course, building wealth in the process. So this pathway is what you can call being a culture shaper. But listen carefully. The purpose of this video is not to tell you about being a culture shaper, but to show you how to be the culture shaper, or to be that person that can reshape culture. And in the process, you become impactful, you become influential, and you become prosperous, right? Because in our generation, and like in other generations, there are always people that criticize, people that judge, people that complain, people that blame, but very few people are culture shapers. Very few people begin to reshape, begin to engineer, and begin to create solutions around the things that, or around the cultures that people complain about, or around the cultures that keep people in shackles and in chains, right? So before I begin to tell you about these elements. And let me add, in this study and in this research and practice, I discovered as of now, and I'm still reading about this, but I discovered as of now that there are 20 elements that if you begin to practice, they will turn you into a culture engineer or a culture shepherd. And of course, you are not supposed to practice all the 20, right? But based on your personality, based on your attitude, based on where you're coming from, based on where you are, based on where you are going to right now, you can begin to identify, oh, I will pick out 4 of these elements and stick with it and begin to, to apply, begin to practice and be on my way, be on that path to becoming that legacy builder, to becoming that person who, can impact others, build influence, and of course, build wealth in the process. But before I tell you about the couple of elements, because I will not be able to share all the 20 in this short video, but if you are not part of my community, please click the description below. In the link you will find a link that you can click to join my newsletter or my community, where I get to have practical tip evidence based master classes and trainings like this every week with members of my community. So it's free, right? You're not paying anything to be part of the community. Okay, all right. Now, before I talk about the elements, let me lay a brief foundation on who a culture shaper is, because we're looking at using the pathway of being a culture shaper to becoming a person, a significant, majestic person of impact and of course influence, and building significant income and prosperity in the process. So a culture shaper can be defined or can be explained in simple terms, as per this video, that can be explained as that individual who has the ability and the consciousness to actively begin to create solutions with the purpose of influencing and engineering prevailing attitudes around the environment, or prevailing behaviors or prevailing norms within a group of people, organizations, communities, and so on. And often they do this by, using their ideas, using their solutions, using their actions, their leadership style, using the way they communicate, and all of these elements, they begin to use them to set a new tone, a new way of doing things, or to begin to lead people to a particular direction, thereby shifting the culture around them, right? So these kind of people, they're often considered as key players in shaping the way people think, the way people behave, the way people even talk, and the way people even act within a particular environment. But you see, as I said, it's an intentional way of doing this. It's a conscious way of doing this. Although there are many culture shapers right now that they were just living their lives. They were just being authentic, being genuine, just doing what they were passionate about, or living their purpose. And in the process, they became culture shapers, that people started doing their best to live life, according to what they have been doing. So let me start with the first elements that if you begin to apply today, you will be on your way to becoming a culture shaper and being able to use this pathway, to build or to become a person of impact, an influential person, and of course build prosperity and income in the process. And let me add, why do I keep starting with impact and influence? Because it has been proven anybody who creates impacts and become influential, income naturally follows. So I always tell people, one of the fastest ways to attract income into your life, take impact plus influence, and then income comes. But for income to come, many times people need to understand the mechanics of business that goes into that. For example, what they call, influence monetization. There's a way to monetize attention or the influence that you are building to be able to create income. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel to teach you how to monetize your influence or to monetize your attention. Whether you have large influence or small influence at your level, you can be able to monetize it in a very ethical, practical, business-oriented way, at the same time creating impact in what you are doing, because you need income to fund your operations to remain influential and keep changing the lives of people, right? So it's important to understand how that works. So the first element that you need to start thinking about when it comes to being a culture shaper, or somebody who reshapes the culture around them and begin to achieve what I've been saying so far, is to understand that, number one, you are not called to judge or to criticize the culture. You are called to disrupt or to shape the culture. That's the first thing that if you understand and live by, you begin to challenge your life, begin to change your life, right? You are not called to judge your culture. You are not called to criticize the culture. You are not called to blame people about the culture, or to complain how you have been kept in shackles by the culture that you grew up and you met maybe in your family, in your community. You are called, you are empowered, or it is your responsibility to rise up to the call of disrupting the culture you met and reshaping that culture. Because as I said, I like to read biographies and I like to read stories across different generations and different countries, different cultures, and all of that. And here's one thing I've discovered across all settings, right? Judging has never changed or transformed anyone or any community. Judging other people, judging your community, judging the culture has never transformed or changed anyone or any culture. Criticizing, blaming, and complaining has never changed or transformed anyone or any culture. In my research and analysis, I have not seen anybody in any generation from either 500 years ago, 200 years ago, or the last 100 years who disrupted their generation by being a chronic complainer or somebody who continuously judge other people. In this generation, it is very easy for people to go on Facebook, on Instagram, and begin to talk against things and all of that, but very few of them are able to take the responsibility and step up to begin to do on the things that can begin to disrupt or shape what they're complaining about. True people, true culture shapers, you wouldn't hardly find them criticizing or blaming and judging people who have either gone ahead of them or, just judging carelessly. No, they focus on building solutions, introducing initiatives, being contributors, being engineers that can, suggest ideas and perspectives and projects and solutions that shape culture and, of course, disrupt what they met. So you are not called, you are not sent here to be a judge, to criticize. You are sent here to take responsibility, to disrupt, and to shape the culture. So, what does that mean to you and me? It means that if we are going to be culture shapers, we have to adopt what I call the builder's mentality, the builder's mindset. So, instead of finding fault, culture shapers don't spend time on finding fault, judging the fault, and talking about the fault. No, culture shapers with builders mindset and mentality, if they find a fault, their immediate proactive responsibility is to build a solution, is to reshape that fault and convert it into a weapon of growth. So instead of finding fault and judging and complaining about it and making noise about it on social media, you make up your mind to look for ways that you can convert that fault into a weapon of growth. So you are focusing on possibilities, not on judging and criticizing. So the question for you is, based on your community, based on the things you have been doing, do you have a builder's mentality? Are you the person that focuses on possibilities, or do you focus on judging, on complaining and criticizing? And these things don't add any form of value, and they will never make you a culture shepherd. That is why I can guarantee you, show me anybody who is an expert in judging and criticizing and complaining. I will show you somebody you will never find impact, influence, and prosperity in their life. So for somebody right now, there needs to be a shift. There needs to be a shift. You need to do a shift, right? A quick, immediate shift as far as the state of your mentality is concerned. You need to come to a place where you move energy towards creative solutions instead of criticizing. Move your energy from criticizing into using that same energy to practice creative solutions. Instead of complaining about what is wrong, step up the game, take responsibility, and begin to create solutions that can reshape what is wrong. So lead by living the future. Don't lead by, nobody leads by judging and criticizing. That is for babes, right? If you're going to be a man, if you're going to be a disruptor, you're going to be a culture shaper, you lead by living the future that others cannot see. Lead by living the future that the masses, the average people cannot see. Show them the way. Show others a new example by taking steps that reveal that, hey, there is a better way. This current culture, this culture that has been there for the last 50 years or the last 20 years or whatever, hey, this culture is old, it is done. There is a better way that we can begin to do this, and you begin to introduce a better way to achieve this. So if you adopt these elements, number one, you are on your way to being a culture shaper who is able to create impact, build influence, and of course, prosperity in the process. Element number two is the masses judge and criticize, but the elite focus on thinking patterns and actions that disrupt and reshape the culture that is drowning and keeping others in shackles and chains. Let me say it again. The masses is a bit linked to point one, but there are key things I want to explain in a separate way on this point too. Right? The masses, the average people, popular, what I call, Facebook comment sections, association members, right? Yes, the masses, they judge, they criticize, but those with elite thinking pattern, and this is my focus, a culture shaper has an elite thinking pattern. Those with elite thinking pattern, those with elite actions disrupt and reshape the culture that is drowning and keeping others in shackles and chains. Because culture can be so terrible. Culture can be so weaponized. Yes, culture can be weaponized by politicians. Culture can be weaponized by people who want to be, how do you call these guys? Authoritative leaders. Culture can even be weaponized by the enemy against a people. Now, this is not a spiritual teaching, but the enemy weaponizes culture. All right. So Culture can be so weaponized to keep people in bondage, in shackles, and in chains. It could be bondage of the mind, bondage as far as the works of their hands are concerned, bondage in character, bondage in addiction, right? So, as a culture shaper, one of your responsibilities is to begin to question common thinking. You identify, is there a common way that people in this community, in this environment, is there a particular way that they think? Begin to question common actions, because your goal here is to stop going along with the standard ideas, to stop going along with the standard ways that people think. You begin to test the common ways that people think and to act, begin to test this common thinking by introducing new viewpoints and new tools, right? So you begin to use fresh viewpoints and fresh tools and fresh analysis or whatever to begin to understand the common way of thinking and the common way of acting. Now, why is this important? Because a culture shaper, you transform, you don't tear down. You see, these when I began to look at the lives of people that shaped cultures in their generation in the last 100 years and 200 years, it was so profound at the things that I was discovering, right? Culture shapers, they focus on transforming, they don't focus on tearing down. Tearing down is for the masses, it's for people with crap mentality. Right? So if you're a culture shaper, your goal is how can I use my fresh viewpoints, new knowledge, new tools, new equipments, new strategies to begin to transform the culture that is keeping people in bondage, in shackles, in chains, instead of tearing them down when culture is keeping all of us down. So if you are within the same culture and you are not having this mindset, your goal is to build from inside out. You're built from inside out because you can break out from that culture and draw others with you and introduce a new dimension, a new culture, a new set of norms. You can do that. You have the capacity to do that, right? You have a weapon that God has given you to do that. I have my own way of introducing culture, right? So built from inside out by offering upgrades rather than simply calling things broken. Many people are good at just calling things broken. Oh, the country is broken, or the city is broken, or my family is broken, or this is broken, that is broken, and all of that. That is the most easiest thing to do in any generation, to call things broken. The hard work is when you choose on transforming and not tearing down. The hard work is going into your thinking room. The hard work is doing all the research and the prototyping and the analysis in order to introduce new upgrades around what is broken. This teaching, for example, this is a teacher. I'm taking a few minutes to teach you guys what I've taken so many years to read hundreds of articles and even books and biographies to be able to put these thoughts together. That is a lot of hard work, right? And this is just even the first part of it. The second part of this knowledge I'm teaching is that I have used now this knowledge to develop frameworks, step-by-step process and strategies that a playbook that if you take and begin to implement step by step, you can begin to change your life. That's hard work. That is the way to bring in, upgrades, to offer upgrades into what is broken so that people can begin to step up to their destinies and to their true realities as ordained by God. Okay, so it is very important for you to practice this. Now, let me get to my notes before, I talk too much and not cover what I have to cover. Now, number 3 is act as a culture builder, designing new norms instead of calling old ones broken. Now, it's a bit linked to what I've been saying so far already, but it is very important for you to understand. So here, you need to intentionally begin to act as a culture builder. And as a culture builder, you spend time to design new norms. You spend time to design new initiatives, new upgrades, instead of just calling old ones broken. Yes, the old ones are broken. They are not working. They are keeping people in shackles and in bondage. But what are you doing about it? So you need to take the responsibility and step up to being a culture builder by designing new norms. So what does that mean? You pay the price to begin to design new alternatives, clear alternatives. You begin to offer updated ways of doing things. That thing that you have been complaining about, what is the updated way that you have brought into the situation? That is how a culture shaper begins to think. So you begin to show people around you or in that environment that, hey guys, there is a better way to do this. There is a better way out for everyone. So can we follow this path and experience a better way? So your goal here is that you begin to highlight. For example, one of the ways to do this is you can highlight that, look, if we do it this way, we are going to experience this new kind of winning and new goals and achievements. And you begin to look at, you begin to try what you can call, what you do, prototyping. You begin to prototype your new norms and new ideas in small ways. And when people begin to see the new small wins that they are recording, you now begin to sell to them. Hey, look, we did this just in 7 days. Look at the new kind of results that we have recorded. Now, imagine if we can put in the hard work and the consistency, we are going to achieve more. So, what am I saying? When you're a culture shaper, you're also good at celebrating small improvements. You are good at letting people know that, look, with these small improvements, we can be able to do more as a result of the results that we have out of this prototyping project. So that way, people that you are trying to lead or to serve, or as a culture shepherd, they begin to see that, hey, there is a possibility of positive change, and we can succeed and become better as a result of the introduction of the new norms that you brought as a culture shepherd or culture builder. Now, those are just 3 elements that I've shared out of 20. And if I continue, this video will be too long for you, right? So, as I said earlier on, if you're not a member of my community, please check the link in the description, join the community, the newsletter, and you will receive emails from me consistently every week to join our teaching programs and master classes. And this community is free for you. Okay, God bless you. And remember, as a result of this new knowledge, because anytime you become aware of something new, anytime you absorb new knowledge, you are literally forbidden from being the old self, because new knowledge will launch you into a new self, right? So, as a result of this new knowledge, you have become a culture builder and a culture shaper in your generation and in your community.